Hey, so ceremonies exist, or processes, or repetition exist to support the team, right? It shouldn't exist on its own. It doesn't necessarily exist so people can say they're doing the right thing. I think there's a couple of things we really want out of ceremonies or some kind of general processes. And again, we want people over process, but the question is, how do we improve people and how do we make it where process becomes less important? And one of those is to build muscle memory, right? We want to build a notion that the teams have some regular process or some basic, good foundation for something. And that means that they can focus on the higher value item. Because the problem is a lot of times if you don't build good muscle memory, you don't build good training, you end up in a situation where you have to go back to the basics all the time, right? And that's really bad. So, muscle memory, right? What we want to do is and this is why teams in Agile world and in other places build a cadence, and it may be a fairly aggressive cadence, right? A cadence around doing the same thing over and over with an inspect and adapt part to it, right? And the idea is to build memory so everybody has a common understanding what the platform is, right? And so, what are some of the techniques and tools that we can do that in the Agile space? I'm going to say like the dojo is super interesting, right? Our goal is to create muscle memory. You got to do the same thing over and over correctly, right? What is it, like a horse? It's like 10,000 times. I don't know what it is, 1,000 times. The idea is we want to create muscle memory. We want to be able to do the right thing well and focus on the high value items. And we also need to keep our eyes on it to make sure we don't get bad muscle memory, like that we didn't develop a bad habit, right? Like a golfer, when they practice their swing, they can either be building good muscle memory or bad. So I'm going to say that the top 4 things in my mind in the Agile space that help us with muscle memory. One of them is this thing called the dojo, right? It's really kind of interesting and scary, but it's really cool. And it's an attempt to break down bad habits, break bad muscle memory, untrain you, and then retrain you in a short cycle, high pressure cooker environment that you cannot survive in by manually thinking, right? You actually can only survive by just making it happen where it becomes second nature to do the short cycle kind of stuff, right? And I think other places that we can, planning and breakdown, right? Every time we do planning and breakdown for work, if we keep those iterations short enough where we do that planning and breakdown on a repetitive basis, and this is sort of like one step back from the dojo, that builds muscle memory about the right way to do breakdown, right? Success breeds success. Muscle memory in the right place enables success to breed success. And so then we have stand-ups and blockers, right? And so a lot of people really dislike stand-up meetings in the Agile space. And these are sort of like the daily factory floor meeting or the daily software meeting. But what they do, if they're done correctly, is they build a muscle memory. Hey, there are no impediments that haven't been identified. I'm sorry, all impediments have been identified. We know what we're doing with this, right? It's this notion of creating muscle memory so that you can deliver higher value on a regular basis. And some people just do this naturally, right? They don't need any ceremonies at all, or they drive ceremonies through sheer will, and they build muscle memory for their team. I think the other one is short iterations, and actually, short iterations are just a longer version of the dojo, right? The longer the iteration, the less attempts you get to do the same things, the less muscle memory, and you kind of just exist rather than having muscle memory. So in my mind, probably, like I said, one of the big pieces of this is we want to be able to build muscle memory, and repetition with the right behavior does that, and it gives us a great foundation. And I know everybody feels like they do this, but this is something to pay attention to. Are we building the right kind of muscle memory, and this is the team getting value out of this? And if not, how do we adjust the cadence, not to get rid of a cadence of meetings or processes in the beginning, but how do we make it where teams end up buying in and generating that muscle memory so that we can accelerate going forward? Have a great day.